The primary purpose of my research is to construct a universal sustainable civilization model that theoretically resolves the awareness willingness gap and critical uncertainties in relation to social justice and other ethical issues, which is able to systemically welcome the inevitable non-equilibrium states as a valuable process of exploration and exploitation in order to overcome any lack of development or injustices of the status quo. To do that by mainly appealing to philosophical argumentation methods that synthesize evidence-based studies essential to ethical complexities, my study aims to help such an overarching framework emerge. Uh, as major parts of the methodology for making it more accessible, I will communicate the usefulness of its theoretical components. First, how as complex adaptive system agents, humans, are critically affected and are determined by the factors beyond their control in terms of well-being capacities, signal processing, inaction and actions, hence performance, credit assignment, and rule discovery, thanks to academic research on social contagion, network dynamics, and positional inequality by Christakis and Fowler. Also, behavioral change model, wheel, by Michi, nudge theory by Taylor and Sunstein, two systems of thinking model by Kahneman, the conceptions of moral uncertainty by McCaskill, imminent human obsolescence by Danaher, distributed moral responsibility by Floridi, progress, human nature, and historical forces by Pinker, and hard enough determinism by Caruso. Hard enough determinism is a central constituent of my theory, and it means even if indeterminism too were valid for some situations in any realm, it wouldn't enable humans to have any level of free will, especially because there are always supra-individual factors enough to completely determine human behaviors. In other words, according to Caruso too, who we are and what we do are ultimately the result of factors beyond our control, whether those factors are determinism, indeterminism, or luck. And because of this, we are never fully or completely ethically responsible for our own actions in the basic desert sense. And also, retributivism is not just and is also problematic and theoretically indefensible. Likewise, further economic, political, cognitive, social, and such like determinants of our behaviors and experiences are systematically interpreted in my paper. Then you can ask, is hard enough determinism compatible with ethical reasoning or ethical change and any desire or effort to build a better world? My answer is yes, because cultural forces and hence knowledge, but of course acquired, and scientifically true perspectives can cause behavioral change and are some of the main determinants of our decisions and actions. So better ethical theories have the potential for us to build a better world in some deterministic ways or hard enough deterministic ways. Based on thorough interpretations of these, for such determinants constantly affect each other, as we know in complex systems. The interplay between such and such nonlinear causalities and consequently the interdependence of our lives are investigated in my article. Integrating multi-causal relations of these findings results in a rule-informing adequate understanding of how to develop models, systems, formulations, and even rights towards ethically desirable common futures, employing the relevant integrated probabilities imparted by the best available science, examining such recurring patterns as ethical causation in adaptive fashions. Second, by modifying the distributed moral responsibility and patient-oriented ethics for everyone to be able to exploit the claimed ultimate advantages in real or some of the time probably not perceived self-interest. Emerging from actualizations of such ethics, my research tries to demonstrate, in accordance with relational paradigm, I offer a paradigm shift to a patient-oriented ethics, which cares about any affected agent or system's well-being and autonomy, and thus designs passivity rules centrally, aiming to successfully prioritize that no human agent is disadvantaged, harmed, impaired, even if the harm is supposed to lead to much more good for the whole or other systems and agents. So I offer designs toward how to receive some desirable effects for every single human being, which also employs the probabilities in relation to such scientific expectations related to the passivity objectives, and so not mainly the consequences. In addition to that, to effectively deal with unintended, unexpected, unknown consequences and effects and externalities, as a necessary complement to such an unintentionality and intentionality in ethics. My patient-oriented ethics model structurally includes the states and effects of non-human systems in a holistic way. Moreover, I examine both multi-layered social networks and minor everyday interactions in an approximation of chaotic behavior, symbolically articulating a minor unfair discrimination against any ordinary person can activate a causal chain of global catastrophic events or initiate some high impact social evil. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. As a result, I address minor unethicalities and ethicalities, especially in the context of self-organized criticality and phase transitions in the sense of ethics and politics. Similarly, the interplay between micro-macro level functions is modeled as ethical political multiplexities, focusing on diverse deliberations. This framework utilizes divergent and convergent social justice issues. Therefore, I must problematize unethical self-reinforcing power relations, structures, interactions, or asymmetries, and hence social dominance orientation, tribalism, authoritarianism, and misleading, harmful norms, traditions, discourses, etc., and related cognitive biases as elements of any root causes or systemic drivers. Furthermore, my work has an advocacy aspect by means of widespread communication, negotiations of the EPE mindset or tools. More ethical collective behaviors, cultural systems, and cooperation narratives can emerge within self-organizing courses of action. So the EP theory is not like a totalitarian ideology, claiming to be able to explain and solve any problem or issue. Instead, it's an open theory, always requiring criticisms and modifications that integrate new, more complex and useful theoretical findings from any discipline in relation to ethical causalities. In addition, different ethical approaches to gradual, incremental, or revolutionary transformational non-systemic or systemic change can benefit from these terms and conceptions, which are the principal conceptual mechanisms of this framework. In 2016, in my academic paper, I coined the term ethical possibility enhancement, meaning to probabilistically facilitate one's own and others' motivations, opportunities, and capabilities to understand, construct, develop, actualize, realize, or facilitate what is more ethical, quantitatively, any increase in probabilities of ethical possibilities, and qualitatively, any improvement in the ethicality of current future possibilities, and counter any problematic entropy. As integral part of EPE, cognitive ethical development is one's own current capacities to deploy, enhance one's own and others' ethical reasoning capabilities, having four determinants: cognitive capabilities, rationality capabilities, ethical deliberation capabilities, and integrated developments. Cognitive ethical development is conceptually saying an open system, which is different within every human and perpetually having volatilities in forms of upgrade, vulnerability, and dimensioned entropy, which could be seen as any dysfunction, disorder, maladaptation, developmental loss, removal, temporary unavailability, inaccessibility, damage, or problematic change too, that works against any ethical possibility enhancement, results in ethical impossibility entropy, which belongs to my, again, original terminology, and it doesn't imply irreversibility. Finally, in the article, it's shown that not only human rights, but also the United Nations global goals could be effectively promoted and drastically improved by the EPE framework. And otherwise, it seems that the UN will probably continue failing the SDGs. So the EPE is both a theory of change and a theory for change. Plus, it can innovate perspectives to realize the rights of nature and even animal rights by providing a broader interdependence thinking. To conclude, put it all together, the EPE ethics, which is patient-oriented and effects and probabilities-based ethics, is defended against virtue ethics, which is agent-oriented and habits character-based, also against the ontological Kantian ethics, which is action-oriented and duty intention-based, and finally against consequentialist ethics, which is outcome-oriented and results utility-based. As I frame ethics based on probability, nonlinear causality, determinants of inaction and actions, factors for non-existence, and existence of useful rules, capabilities, responding to the complexity of real-world phenomena. In other words, ceteris paribus, all other things being equal, is invalid and misleading in the realm of ethical complexities. There are different and mostly unjustly unequal determinants, factors for each individual and or in different situations. Dimensions and types of disadvantages, incapabilities, vulnerabilities, and powerlessness must be considered in favor of relevant agents. Also, scarcity mindset of the economically disadvantaged humans and reputational availability cascades too must be seen as critical factors for such unethicalities. In accordance with such hard enough determinism issues, ethical responsibility too must be distributed based on the considerations of complex and thus global and local, minor and major determinants and causalities, so unequally in favor of relatively more disadvantaged and powerless humans and some other agents as scientific findings require. Otherwise, ethical rules are mostly dysfunctional and a sort of wishful thinking or irrational and many times even harmful optimism. Likewise, advocacy efforts too must consider the causalities of ethicalities instead of demanding the same ethics from all humans as if ceteris paribus were valid in the real world, meaning ignoring especially the capability gap, motivation gap, and opportunity gap among individuals. So the conceptions, usages of consequence, duty, general action rule, intention, virtue, vice, moral character, utility, outcome, and actions are generally, to my research, misleading, problematic, or mostly unethical and do not work. For this reason, the EPE ethics exclude such approach. On the contrary, the much needed analysis and designs of patience rules and probabilities of effects are the best ways to ensure any desired ethicality and hence to improve individual well-being and individual autonomy, as autonomy is a prerequisite for the optimization of short-term and long-term well-being. The EPE argumentation also resolves the false dichotomy between altruism and self-interest in this way. It uses any person's choice to continue living more as its meta-ethical ground. Its designs use probabilistic approaches to be able to consider multiple causes and diverse effects instead of solely at general consequences. In a nutshell, these are the main conceptualizations of my complexity theory of ethics. But if there is more time in relation to the EPE theory, I can summarize the mentioned researchers' academic work from which my theory emerged.
Thank you, Mr. Barış Bayram,
Thank you very much.
for the great presentation. And
Thank you very much.
for myself, I'm looking forward to see the hard copy of your paper. How can we reach your paper? Is it published or going to be published?
Still not published. I can complete it in 2 months.
Okay. Looking forward to see it then.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Are there any questions? No questions? Mr. Barış, there is no question, so we are lucky because we are not on schedule and we have used some more 10 minutes than the schedule.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for great presentation.
Thank
so, dear participants, we are now at the end of session 4, and the symposium will continue with the forthcoming presentations and talks. I hope you all the best for all the participants and listeners. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.